Hey, it's MJ from the Coaches Panel. Welcome back as we keep working our way through the player reviews of every single person that moved clubs during the off-season via trade and free agency. We look at what it means for the club that they have departed, the club they've now landed at, and of course, we're all about AFL Fantasy, SuperCoach, and Dream Team. So I'll give you my take on what it means, not just for the player, but the players and the clubs around, to see if there's some nuggets and some goodness that can help us as we enter into the 2024 season. Looking at now, finally, he gets there. Esava Ratugolea. We're talking about a brand new Port Adelaide Power player. But what does it mean for the team that he's left at Geelong? Well, the good news is for Cats fans, probably not a whole heap. They've got a really great deal from a draft capital perspective that is really going to help them head in to this upcoming next few drafts. Esava, at the end of the day, wasn't really best 22. He was in and out of the sides, not just over years gone by when he was playing as a key position forward, but even just this year when he kind of calibrated his career as a lockdown and intercepting defender. At Geelong, as the year kind of went on, he really drifted out of the side. And so, yes, their depth probably is going to miss a little bit on that, and they'll certainly try to populate on that as they get through the drafts over the next 1 to 2 seasons. But when you look at this Geelong backline, it's actually really quite stable and really quite tall. Kolodjasny, Henry, DeConning, Stewart, all of these guys are actually over 190 centimetres. So it's not like they're lacking for height and options down back. So even when one of these guys either is out through injury, suspension, a little bit of a different look and feel about their team, they're still actually pretty rock solid for depth through there. So from a Geelong perspective, yeah, okay, it skinnies out some depth, but in terms of a best 22 impact, absolutely nothing that's coming from my perspective. So I think this is a nice move for Geelong to get some good draft capital that they can use over the next couple of years, and they let a player go that, you know, ultimately has spent the better part of 14 months indicating to the club that he'd like to be a Port Adelaide player. For the Power, what does it mean for them? Well, finally, this move, along with Zerk Thatcher, means they now have actual options that can play on a variety of different talls. Outside of Aaliyah, who I really rate as a really good intercepting defender, they don't have a lot of great options and depth in that key position spot. They've lost some through a bunch of different elements over the past few years, either a drop off of form, retirements, or guys that politely really aren't lockdown defenders, and I'm alluding to a Trent McKenzie in that space. They're valiant, they try, they absolutely go hard, but they really aren't that sort of a move. So from a Port Adelaide perspective, they've done a number of things this offseason that should ultimately help them move forward in a bunch of different areas, as they certainly believe they are right in the premiership tilt and consideration. What Esava Ratugolea is in this role for Port Adelaide, and what he's shown at VFL and stints and moments at Geelong, is his really strong physical body that can play that lockdown role well. And this works beautifully for Port Adelaide. It allows Aaliyah to go back to being the interceptor. Zerk Thatcher can come in and play on the more mobile tall, whether that be the third tall or the one that loves to push up the ground a little bit higher. All of a sudden now, structurally, they're a lot more sound. Bergman doesn't have to play as tall when required. Houston now can really be an incredible rebounder and take his game up to another level, and he was already really, really strong in how he played last year. So Ratugolea just means that the monsters down back, they don't have to worry about them. Go back and reflect on the previous season from a Port Adelaide perspective. How many times did an opposition key forward take them to town if Aaliyah couldn't get on top of them, either in one-on-one or in intercepts? I can think of countless times that happened last year. So Esava Ratugolea alongside Zerk Thatcher is a really great move for Port Adelaide. They've structured up nicely here. I don't think he's an amazing selection for them in the sense of it's going to be the main reason they catapult deep into finals. Rather, I think all it does is it just takes some pressure off a backline that at times really hemorrhaged goals to key position players. So I think he'll at least make it some 50-50 contests. He'll at least give them a bit more size and strength and shape them up a little bit better. So I think it's a good move from a Port Adelaide perspective. For fantasy footy, what does it mean for us? Well, purely for Esava, any dude that's averaging pretty much in the 40s in fantasy and in the low 50s in SuperCoach is not relevant for us. Even in deep draft leagues, he's not relevant. Now, I know he's shown moments in games this year just gone where he can pop a half a dozen to a dozen intercept marks and get a few kicks and get a reasonable score. But at the end of the day, if you look at this Port Adelaide side and what he's stepping into, if there's any intercept marks, don't they want to Lear doing that? Sava's role is going to be completely locked down. And so historically, there's not a lot of great faith that you can give to Esava being a good fantasy or a SuperCoach scorer. So for me, directly, there's nothing to see or gain. And because at Geelong, he was in and out and not really a lock 22, I don't think there's any great benefits that are coming for them there. So Esava Ratugolea, I think, is a nice piece for Port Adelaide. I think it structures them up nicely. But for us in the fantasy community, just jog on. Esava's not going to help us whatsoever. There'll probably be, maybe 4 or 5 games throughout the year where he'll pop a reasonable score due to a matchup. And so if you want to run that gauntlet in your draft or daily fantasy and look at some loopholes, be my guest to do that. But anything in the spaces of classic, you want nothing to do with him, and drafts outside of the odd, just throw a dart and hope it sticks for you as a punt. There's not a lot for you there. But do you agree? Do you disagree on my take on Esava Ratugolea? You can have your say in the comments section below here on YouTube. And if you are enjoying these player reviews, make sure you've turned on the notifications. Make sure you're following the channel. There's brand new videos dropping right throughout the 2024 fantasy footy preseason. And not just player reviews, you're starting to see some other things creep through the channel. And then, of course, it really all gets going from January 1 with the 50 most relevant. If you are enjoying these videos, make sure you follow us across social media. All the details and all of the channels you can follow us on are in the description of this video, and you become a Patreon, a supporter of the Coaches Panel for just a few dollars. You'll get some bonus content, access to hidden groups, and a ton of other stuff. If you are loving what you've got from us so far in this preseason or years gone by as you've read about us or listened to us, we'd encourage you to do that. All the details for that also in the description of this video. Thanks for watching. We can't wait to be back chatting with you soon about another player that's moved clubs this off-season.